Hey there, how's it going? It is your muscle building coach, Lee Hayward, and we are live for the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, December the 7th. So I do apologize for the late start here. I had to reboot my modem on my host computer here. For some reason, I started it up and there was no internet access. So I was like, oh, this is great. So I played around some of the settings, nothing's working. So last case, last resort, I turned it all off, unplugged the modem, everything else, rebooted it from scratch, and sure enough, that fixed the internet problem. So again, I do apologize for the little hiccup. For those of you who are tuned in live right now, if you would be able to do me a big favor and let me know if this is coming through loud and clear, if you can hear me, if you can see me. Seems to be working fine on my end, but I want to make sure that it is coming through on your end. So if you could type into our chat window and let me know, I would appreciate it very much. Just going to test a couple settings here. All right, let's see what we got. All right, loud and clear, loud and clear. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for the support. All right. Good stuff. Now, the way these video chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour-ish. Usually, sometimes I stretch beyond the hour mark sometimes. But I'm going to be hanging out here and answering some questions that you have with regards to bodybuilding, fitness, exercise, nutrition, any specific challenges that you may be dealing with when it comes to building muscle, losing fat, working around injuries, or anything that is pertain to the whole bodybuilding and fitness and basically becoming the best version of yourself. So if there's anything around those issues that you would like to discuss, please feel free to post those into our video chat window, and I'll do my best to help you out during our chat today. I just want to make a few comments now while I'm waiting for some questions to come through there. I know a lot of people are typing away. Good stuff. Yesterday, I posted up a video, and this was kind of a spur of the moment, off the cuff type of thing. But I found a box of my old goal setting and workout journals. And I mentioned this in the video, but I came across this box of journals because my dad was going through some of the old stuff that he had over at the house. He's doing some renovations, and he came across this cardboard box full of journals. And these are journals that I had from back in the late 90s. So, I mean, literally 20 years old. And I was going through them, some of the journals that I had and the things that had set for myself in terms of like goals and ambitions and things that I wanted to achieve. And I was just going through it, and to be able to look through that and to see some of the stuff that I was fortunate enough to have achieved, some stuff that I had set for myself, things that didn't go quite as well as I planned. And it was really interesting to go through that. And I got a lot of positive feedback to it. In fact, I think there was over 100 likes and not a single dislike yet. Now, I know once the haters find out about the video, I'll get a few dislikes for sure. But right now, I mean, it's all positive feedback. So I do appreciate that. And a lot of people were saying they want to see more videos related to that type of stuff. So not just bodybuilding and fitness, but more around becoming, again, a well-rounded, best version of yourself. And this, of course, includes communication skills, personal development skills. And I'm a big believer that your physical body is a big part of that. You really need to take care of your physical health. I mean, if you don't have that, then not much else matters besides your physical health. I mean, you could have the financial stability, you could have the relationships, you could have all the material possessions you like, but if you don't have your physical health and well-being, then none of that stuff really matters that much. So, I mean, that is why I really put the priority on your health and fitness. I mean, yeah, it's cool to have to take it to a higher level in terms of building muscle and improving your athletic performance and striving to be the best version of yourself in terms of whatever it is that you're working towards, be it bodybuilding, be it some sort of sport specific thing that you're training for, or just to look as good as you possibly can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But even just covering the basics of your overall health and fitness for that focus alone, not even the performance and the looks and all that, but just your health and fitness for the performance, or not for the performance, but for the well-being and the longevity that's going to provide. I mean, that is huge. And I know that's something that unfortunately not a lot of people prioritize enough until it's too late. You know, they usually, well, one of these days I'll get around to it. Yeah, someday I'll get around to taking care of myself. Someday I'll get around to starting that workout, starting that diet, whatever. And then, of course, someday never comes around until it's usually too late. And then they're suffering the ill effects, you know, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the diabetes, or whatever it is, all these warning signs that now your body is breaking down due to years of neglect. And unfortunately, a lot of people let it come to that before they actually start taking action. So they wait until the damage is done, and then they say, well, now I'll try and fix it. And sometimes it's too late by that point. So I think that's a very big part of your whole personal development is your physical well-being. But once you have that under control and you're doing all the right things in terms of your workouts and your nutrition, and you have that under control, then there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more that goes into it. One question that I got to that video, and I'm just going to kind of discuss this first before I get into your specific questions that I know you're typing in there now. One gentleman posted, he was saying, like, how do you find your purpose in life? And I was thinking, this is deep, right? This is really deep questions coming through. You know, how do you find your purpose? And I'm assuming he must be a young guy. He didn't mention his age or anything like that, but he was looking at how I was relating my goals that I had set for myself back when I was a teenager and how I had achieved many of those goals. And he was again wondering, how does one find their purpose? And looking back at it, I've had a lot of things that I wanted to do over the years. I had a lot of different things. And I was a big believer in going through different types of goal setting workshops and just letting your mind roam. And one that I was a big advocate of was Anthony Robbins goal setting workshops, because my dad had a set of Anthony Robbins Unlimited Power cassette tapes, not CDs, cassette tapes. I know some of you probably never ever played a cassette tape before, so right? Just kind of dating myself here, but I had those cassette tapes and I would go through those and go through the different goal setting workshops. And I've done this over and over again, but I find doing this helps to just get you thinking about what are some things that you would like to have. Like if there was no limits, if failure was not an option, I mean, what would you do? Like if you knew it was impossible to fail, what would you do? And just kind of let your brain just start roaming and brainstorming different ideas to see what type of things you would like to do with your life. And for me, I was big into fitness right from an early age. I've kind of shared this story before. I mean, how that got started was back when I was in grade school, getting pushed around and bullied. And I figured, you know what, I got to build myself up so I'm not getting pushed around and getting the shit kicked out of me, you know, at lunch break at school by the bullies. So that's what drove me to health and fitness, and also drew me to martial arts at the time. Then as I pursued that, I got more into the competitive side of bodybuilding, competed on the bodybuilding stage for years, and that was a big passion of mine. And I wanted to figure out a way to take that passion and to make a living from it. How can I take my passion and actually earn a living from it? So that's what drew me to the internet and coaching people, and basically having my own online bodybuilding and fitness coaching business. So that's what drew me to there. But there was a lot of different setbacks along the way. One thing, like I went to school to study computers, and I had full intention when I was in my teenage years, I was going to get a job as some sort of computer technician, maybe a computer programmer, maybe working in, you know, networking, in some sort of IT department in something along those lines. I never really knew what it was. I mean, but that's where I was putting my focus, and that's what I went to school to study for. I studied programming and networking and diagnostics and all that computer stuff back in the late 90s. Now, the stuff that I learned back then is like obsolete today, because I mean, put it in perspective. I was my computer was a 486 computer on a dial-up internet connection, right? So I mean, way back in the day, like none of the stuff that we have available today, like before the days of social media and smartphones and YouTube and Google and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're talking like old school stuff back in the day. But that's what I studied. I studied computers, and I had full intentions of going into that industry. And as crazy as it was, once I got my diploma in computer studies, I went out there and I started looking for a job like everybody does, right? Graduated from college, that's it. Come on, let's go. We're going to hit the road. And I put out resume after resume after resume. And I was emailing different companies' resumes. And all in total, I went around to like the local businesses that were in my area, hand deliver that resume. If anybody had a job application, I put in my application. I had several interviews, put out maybe close to 100 resumes, never got a single job. I had some interviews and I got rejected from those interviews, but nobody would hire me for what I went to school for. I mean, you can probably relate to this. I'm sure you probably know people in your personal life. Maybe even you yourself have went to school, you know, years of education, thousands of dollars racked up in student loan debt and everything else, and you can't even get a job for what it is that you studied. That's where I was. I was in that same position. I was in that position where I was like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I mean, I just, years in school, racked up thousands of dollars in debt, and now I can't even get a job for what it was that I studied for. But luckily, I did have an interest in the internet because it was in its infancy, and I did learn how to design websites. So I took my passion of bodybuilding and created my very first bodybuilding website. And so my failure in getting a job actually led me to have a success in creating my own online business, because if I had gotten a job, then I would have just got, you know, caught up in the regular rigmarole, day to day, going to work, working for someone else, just doing what they tell me to do. And chances are there'd be no Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding and all this stuff that I've created online and all the people who I've helped along the way. None of that would have came about if I had have succeeded in getting a job right from the get-go. So sometimes your setbacks and your failures might be the seed to something bigger later on down the road. And I always try to operate from the mindset that everything happens for a reason and a purpose. Now, I mean, I know it's kind of stretching it because sometimes some crazy stuff happens and you're like, well, what's the reason or purpose behind this? But I always try to operate from that mindset. Everything happens for a reason and a purpose, even if it's a setback, even if it's a failure, even if something happens that you shouldn't have happened. At some level, some way, some shape, some form, that you can use that to serve you. And a prime example, my failure at finding a job, which was very frustrating. When my parents were very frustrated at the time because, you know, all the time and money and everything that's been invested into my education, and now no job coming about from it. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't a very good situation at home. They were frustrated and they were concerned for my future, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So sometimes you might need to look at that when you're looking for your purpose. Try different things, get around different people, just basically put yourself out there, but also be open to what comes about, because sometimes what you're going for might not be your true purpose or your true destination, and it might push you in another direction. So again, this is kind of like a far out topic, and I'll probably make other videos where we can go into some of this in more detail. But for the time being, I'm just going to answer some of the questions that you guys got coming through here, because I know we got a lot of people tuned in, a lot of questions coming through. So we got, just going to do a shout out. We got Andy joining us. And he says, before it gets too busy, here is my question. What type of workout is best for fat loss, a bodybuilding or a circuit type of training? You know what, Andy? When it comes to fat loss, the workout is secondary. And what I mean by this, you can follow a bodybuilding split routine. You can follow a total body workout. You can follow a circuit routine. You can follow a CrossFit program. You can, whatever. You can follow all kinds of different workout programs. But what is going to make the biggest impact in whether or not that program is a fat loss program or not is the diet you follow it up with. I mean, if you're eating a caloric surplus, it doesn't matter what kind of diet you're following. It doesn't matter what kind of workout you're following. It doesn't matter how much cardio you're doing. If you're eating a caloric surplus, you're not going to tap into burning stored body fat. So you have to have the diet in place, and then the workout, it's really personal preference. I mean, I've gotten ripped for bodybuilding competitions following a bodybuilding workout. So you don't need to follow a circuit training or anything like that. Nothing wrong with it if that's what you prefer to do, but what's going to impact your fat loss results is the diet, not the training. Now, you still need both. I mean, you obviously want to exercise and stimulate your metabolism, stimulate muscle growth and all that while you're burning body fat. If you just try and diet without training, then you risk losing muscle and slowing down your metabolism. So that's why you need the training. But as far as the type, It really depends on your personal preference. All right, let's see. We got Woodulos's joining us. And while we were having a bit of a delay at the start, he said he was going to put the kettle on. Good for you. Always good to have a cup of tea. In fact, I'd love to have a cup of tea right now if I had one. I got a bottle of water. That's the best I can do at the moment. All right, moving on. Jesse's joining us. We have Nerd34 is joining us. Hayden, Robert. Who else? We got Ken's joining us. Okay, this is another comment regarding that video. Woodulos is saying, in your most recent video, you talked about goals and your successes, but as a coach, what would you say is the client transformation you're most proud of? Ooh. I've got a couple. One, I'm not even going to refer to this person as a client, but my wife. I met my wife back in 1999, and once we started going steady, like once we got past the dating phase and we're saying, okay, you know, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, we're going out, we're steady, she started to work out with me. So probably after about 3 months or so, she started to, you know, take an interest in fitness and started to work out with me. And within a year or so, when was it? In 2001, actually. So we met in the fall of '99, and then in the fall of 2001, she did her first competition, and then she went on and competed several times and did quite well. I mean, especially on the local level. I mean, for her first few shows, she was getting her butt kicked by some of the more experienced competitors. But once she dialed it in and learned how to you know, condition herself, and of course, I was training her. Basically, I mean, we're living together. I'm teaching her everything that I know and everything that I can do to help her. But she ended up winning, I believe it was 7 overall titles in both bodybuilding as well as in figure competition. She even went all the way and competed on the Canadian national stage in figure. So again, I'm not going to refer to her as a client, but she's definitely a student because I've worked with her, helped her with her training, helped her with her nutrition, helped, you know, fine tune everything. And she has really took it, you know, as far as she could with her physique, right? Again, took it all the way to the national stage. So I'm super proud of her, obviously. There was another client transformation that I'm quite proud of. This was a guy who came to me for help for getting ready for a bodybuilding show, and I was competing in the same show. So he came to me, and I was looking at him, I was saying, yeah, okay, we got some work to do. I mean, yeah, you've got some muscle on you and everything else, and a good structure, but he had a lot of excess body fat, and he was coming back from an injury. He had actually broken his ankle from playing rugby. So just his ankle still wasn't 100%. Wanted to get ready for a bodybuilding show, and I think this is going to be tricky because, I mean, here you are, you know, you can't do much cardio due to the ankle injury, you know, and you've never competed in bodybuilding before and everything else. So I thought I had my work cut out for me with this guy, and I helped him, worked with him one-on-one because he was local, lived in St. John. So I helped him not only with his diet and his training and following along with him online, but once a week we got together and had an in-person in the gym training session where I would help him with his posing, his presentation, and help him to really fine-tune things. And we ended up competing in the same division. I thought this guy was going to make the middleweight class. He ended up competing in the light heavyweight division, the same class as I did, and he ended up beating me. So first-time competitor ended up beating me. This was my 13th competition that I was doing. He was in his first competition, and he kicked my ass. He ended up getting, I got 3rd place in that show. He ended up getting 2nd place. And again, when I was working with him originally, I thought, you know, I didn't even think he would be caliber enough to crack the top 5, but he just stuck with it. He was determined. Craig is Xavier. If you go to my coaching page, you'll see a picture of him before and after. Very impressive transformation he made. But when he came to me first, I said, no way, this guy is you know, I figured he'd do okay, but he did really well, and he ended up kicking my ass in competition. So that was pretty cool, you know. The student beats the master, so to speak. So that was a good one. But there's a lot. I mean, I really, everybody who achieves success, I mean, I'm proud of, but I mean, those are a couple that stand out in my mind, right? I'll just say that. They stand out as some unique situations for sure. All right, we got Raylan joining us. Want to know some tips for building up the calves. The calves are very simple, and I've got several videos on YouTube talking about calf training. You can go and check those out. If you just type in Lee Hayward calf workout or anything like that on YouTube, and you'll get my videos about calf training. But I'll just throw out a couple tips for you right here. The calves are a very simple muscle group. I mean, they basically just point and flex the toes. You have two basic options. You can do straight leg calf raises like a standing calf raise, or you can do a bent leg calf raise, a seated calf raise. You want to include both. You want to do a straight leg and you want to do a bent leg. And the reason for that is because it's going to work the different aspects of the calves. You're going to have the soleus and the gastrocnemius, those two muscles. And you need both the straight leg as well as the bent leg in order to fully stimulate the calves. Other than that, what you want to focus on is quality, form, and full range of motion. A lot of guys that I see in the gym who struggle with their calves, they're lifting way too much weight, and they're doing these short little bouncy reps in the mid-range. Like I see guys, sometimes skinny teenagers put the whole weight stack on the standing calf raise and then get in there and they're almost like bouncing, like a half a squat, half a bouncy calf raise, and they're just doing these little short choppy reps in the mid-range. Whereas what I would recommend is they take half that weight or even less, really focus on letting your heel sink all the way down in the bottom of that calf raise. Get a full stretch and then come all the way up on your tippy toes for a full peak contraction. And go through that exaggerated full range of motion with every single calf raise that you do. I don't even care about the number of reps. I care about the quality. So, I mean, even if you're only doing 5 reps per set, but they're really good stretch, peak contraction, and going through that full range of motion, you're going to get more stimulation from 5 good reps than you will from 10 or 15 half-ass choppy reps. So if you can focus on the quality, and with the exercises, you want to do a bent leg and a straight leg. A few sets of each, really focus on just feeling that muscle work and consistency. The thing with the calves, where they are a small muscle group, they can recover fairly quickly. So, I mean, you could train your calves 2, maybe 3 times a week, and you should be able to, recover and progress that way. All right, let's move on. We have Daniel joining us. Says, Lee, I recently feel like I'm not making any gains. In all honesty, I feel like I'm losing mass. Any recommendations on a good bulking program to follow? Any tips to grow rather than to maintain? And tips on diet would be great. How do I calculate accurately my caloric intake? What should it be? All right, this again is a loaded question, because in order to really help you and to kind of guide you on what you should do, I really need to know what you're currently doing. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say you should do this when I don't even know what you've done, what you've tried, what's working, what's not working. So what I would recommend, to kind of just set the stage for this, go download a copy of my ebook called The 3 Keys to Building Muscle. You can go to my main website, leehayward.com, and you'll see a link to it in the side menu bar there. Download it, 3 Keys to Building Muscle. This is a complete training guide that covers all the fundamentals, covers the fundamentals of training and progressive overload and how to split up your workouts. It covers a sample muscle building diet that you can follow, and goes over the 3 keys, which are training, nutrition, and mindset, right? Those 3 keys. What I want you to do is go through that guide and see if there's any areas in your current program where you could be optimizing based on what's covered in that guide. There's probably some things that you're neglecting or some things that you're not giving 100% to. So try and optimize it that way. And if you need some more help with this, then you can go to my website and sign up for a free 20-minute consultation with me where we can discuss this in more detail. And in order to sign up for a free 20-minute coaching call with me, you have to go to leehayward.com. And up in the top menu bar, there's a link there called Coaching. Click on that, and you can book, again, a 20-minute consultation, and we'll discuss, what it is you're doing, discuss what's working, what's not working, and try and come up with some realistic strategies to help move you in the right direction. We've got Bobby joining us. It's a great page. Keep it up. We have Hayden joining us. How would you go about planning a day and time management for a college student majoring in engineering to make solid lean gains and still achieve well in academics? Also tips for mental focus. Okay, time management. Well, really going to depend on your school schedule. That's one thing. I'll kind of share some of my personal experience from back when I was in college. I was very fortunate that the way my schedule worked in college, it was 5 days a week from 12 noon until 5 p.m. That was my class schedule, 5 days a week. So that's a very convenient schedule. It's only 5 hours a day, which wasn't that much, but I had all morning and also had some time after school. So the way I would do it is I would you either work out first thing in the morning, which I had plenty of time to do, or I would work out after school, whichever. There was a time I was actually competing in a bodybuilding show while I was in college. So the way I did it is I would do my cardio in the morning, prep my meals for the day, get everything ready, go to school, and then after school I'd do my weight training workout, posing practice and stuff like that, and then do my homework later in the evening. I found that worked out well for me in terms of the scheduling. But again, it really depends on your class schedule. So you have two options. You can work out first thing in the morning, or you can work out after school. Well, you got to figure out what works the best for you. Now, if your schedule is kind of all over the place, where some days it's morning, some days it's evenings, some days you might have a break in between, then you really got to kind of customize it to each individual day. You know, I know some people work out like on their lunch break and make that work. Some people, again, work out later in the evening. Some people work out early in the morning. Oops. I clicked the button on my chair there and flicked it. I hit the tilt button on my chair and it just, whoa, I'm starting to roll forward here. Sorry about that. Yeah, where was I? Talking about different schedules. I'll give you a practical example that I know from a lot of people. More often than not, people who work out first thing in the morning are usually the most consistent. And the reason for that is because you're getting your workout done and out of the way before the rest of the day can get in the way and distract you. So if you're struggling to find a time to train, I would, if possible, work out first thing in the morning. Now, I know depending on your schedule and everything else, that may not be possible or may not be ideal for your schedule. So you really have to kind of customize it to you. But that's one that does work well for a lot of people. What else did you have there? One thing I will say, when it comes to bodybuilding and school is like, you don't neglect your school for bodybuilding. All right, I'm gonna say that now. I would rather you do well in school, get your degree, whatever it is that you're working towards, make the most of that, and have bodybuilding as an extra add-on. Don't make bodybuilding the focus and have school be the extra add-on. I mean, you're spending a lot of time, a lot of money, you're making a big investment in going to school. Make the most of that investment. So I would recommend that you prioritize that. So if, for example, like you're going through exams or times when you've got a term project and you really got to crank to it, it's okay to let your workout suffer a little bit in order to maximize your time efficiency for that project. But as soon as you get some more time and flexibility under your belt, then you can go back to prioritizing your workouts again. But I'll use an example from my own time in college. Back when I was a student, I remember the first semester, I was competing in a bodybuilding show. I had scheduled for it, and I was prioritizing the bodybuilding competition. I really wanted to do well, and I wasn't giving my schoolwork as much focus as it should have. And that was the worst semester I did, was when I was trying to combine a bodybuilding competition and going to school. After that, I just kind of, I'm still working out, but not to the same degree as required to get ready for a bodybuilding competition. And then for all the other semesters, even though they were more challenging and the workload was more demanding, my grades were much better because I had the time and energy to focus on those. So yeah, just put things in perspective. School first, bodybuilding second, and then make the bodybuilding fit around your school schedule. All right, let's see what else. We've got Nerd34 joining us. He says he's trying to lose weight. Should I put my macros at total body weight or at lean body mass? You know what? It really doesn't matter. And the reason why I say that, because whatever you try and calculate your macros or your calories at when you're starting a fat loss program, that's just an educated guess. That's just a starting point. That's not what you're going to stick with for the remainder or the duration of your fat loss program. Whatever you start with, let's just say you're going to go by total body mass. I mean, whatever. You're going to base your calories and your macros and everything else off your current body weight. And you're just going to follow that, see how your body responds. If you are losing weight with that much food, macros, and everything else, then stick with it. Follow it through until it stops working for you. Once it stops working for you and you hit a plateau, then you can reevaluate and try something different. But one thing I will suggest, and this applies to anybody who's trying to lose body fat, I'd recommend dieting on as high of a calorie intake as you can while still making progress. Don't try and go to the extremes right off the bat, right off the get-go. I mean, you see this a lot. Some people say, well, I want to lose weight as quickly as possible. So they go on like some ridiculous starvation diet. You know, they probably go from eating 3,000 calories a day down to 1,000 calories a day, thinking, oh, I'm going to lose weight as fast as possible. And I'm like, what's the point in doing that? Because what happens when your body starts to plateau at, let's say, 1,000 calories a day? I mean, where are you going to go from there? Are you just going to stop eating? Right? I mean, it's better to just take things in phases. So like say, if for example, your maintenance calories or what you're currently consuming is 3,000, then let's cut it back to say like 2,500. See how that works. See, monitor your results, see how your body responds. If it's working, stick with it. If it's not, then you have a couple options. You can either bump up your activity level, so more cardio, more frequent training, or you can reduce your calories. But do so small, gradually, and structured. Just don't randomly cut calories for the sake of cutting calories, or do crazy amounts of cardio for the sake of doing crazy amounts of cardio. Try and have some structure to it and do the least amount of work possible while still getting the results you want, because that will give you room to progress as your body hits a plateau. So again, don't starve yourself. Try and diet on as high a calories as you can while moving in the right direction, and try and function on the least amount of exercise. So I mean, don't go starting off doing 2 hours of cardio a day. Maybe start off doing like a half an hour of cardio a day and see how that works. If it's working, stick with it. And then when you hit a plateau, then you have room to increase that cardio to accommodate how your body is changing. But what's going to happen, and this applies, like you could go out and you could hire the best coaches, you could hire the best trainers and nutritionists and everything else, and all they're going to do is they're going to lay out a program based on what they feel is going to work for you, but it's just going to be an educated guess. We really don't know how your body's going to respond until you start following the program, and then we follow along with your progress and modify the program based on how your body actually responds. So that initial diet or that initial workout that you follow, it's just your starting point. Don't put too much emphasis into it. Like, don't try and make the first draft perfect, right? It's kind of like someone writing a book. You don't try and make your first draft perfect. You just get it out there, and then you focus on improving it from there. So your first workout, your first diet, don't over stress on trying to get all the details and the macros right. Just get a diet and training program in place, follow it, see how your body responds, and then we can tweak it and modify it as you go in order to help to optimize it to your specific body type and how everything's working for you. All right, let's move on. We've got another question here from 80s Baby saying, growing up, we heard if you want muscles, eat your wieners, and now you're a hot dog away from a heart attack, or a hot dog's good for you. Okay, processed foods like hot dogs, I would personally avoid them, or at least keep them to a bare minimum. Processed foods, processed meats and stuff like that, I mean, first off, I tell you what, you can even go on YouTube or anything, like just do a search for like how hot dogs are made and just see how they do it. I mean, they get all this meat and they just grind it up, and then they throw in preservatives and additives and flavors, and God knows what goes into that pile of mush that they're just mixing up. and then ultimately just pumping it out into hot dogs. I mean, it's kind of gross when you think of it, but it's not. There's so much preservatives and chemicals and crap in there that your body doesn't need. I mean, it's not natural. So I mean, if you want to have a good quality muscle building diet, stick to natural unprocessed foods, real meat, you know, like grass-fed natural organic meat if possible, but at least don't go to the extreme of getting like deli meats and hot dogs and processed junk like that, because again, the additives and fillers and stuff that are in there, it's yes, there's protein, yes, there's calories and all that, but I mean, there's a lot of other garbage in there that you don't need as well. So I mean, keep your diet as natural as possible. That's the way to go. Glenn is joining us, and he's asking, is compound sets the same as supersets? Compound sets as the same as supersets. Usually, I know people refer to compound exercises. I'm not sure what, I'd like to know what you mean by compound sets, because there's different ways of going about it. I mean, you can do a straight set, which is usually you just do a set of an exercise, take a rest period, do another set of an exercise, take a rest period. I mean, normal straight sets. A superset is when you do 2 exercises back to back with very little rest. So, I mean, for example, you could do a set of bicep curls and then immediately do a set of tricep extensions with no rest in between. That would be supersetting biceps and triceps. There's other variations of that. Sometimes people refer to them as alternate sets. If you were to say, like, do a set of biceps, rest, and then do a set of triceps, that would usually be an alternate or a jump set. But there's all kinds of different strategies. Again, as far as a compound set, I really don't know exactly what you mean by that. Usually I've heard people refer to compound exercises, but I'm not sure what you exactly mean by compound sets. If you want to elaborate on it a bit more in the comments, I'll probably get back to you. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what else we got. Azim is joining us. So you really enjoyed the last video where I took you down memory lane and shared the goal-setting books. Thank you much, Azim. Really appreciate it. He says he's a software engineer himself and started off as a computer programmer. Okay, so you were in the same boat as me. And he says the 486 computer and the dial-up internet connection. Yep, back in the day. What else? Okay, so he says 486 dial-up connection. Oh God, those days were the days when things were simple and not as complicated. Same goes with bodybuilding. It was simple then, and now it has become more complicated. And I have to agree with you. Oh shoot, the camera's gonna fall off the tripod there. All right. Back in the day, I almost feel fortunate that I started working out back before the days of the internet, because information came at you much slower. Like, information came in the way of books and magazines and VHS videos, or working with people one-on-one, like personal trainers and stuff like that. But you weren't bombarded with information like you are today. And that's one of the drawbacks to the internet and having so much information, is it's information overload. And what I find when I'm working with people now is we need to take a different approach, and instead of trying to overcomplicate or give them more, we need to simplify and actually try and eliminate and give them less. You know, one of the things I've heard people say is like, knowledge is accumulation, right? Just accumulating information, accumulating more and more and more. And that's kind of where a lot of people are. They have a lot of knowledge, you know, because they hear all the different workout programs, all the different diet plans, and they know about them. So they have a lot of knowledge, but wisdom is elimination. So knowledge is accumulation, wisdom is elimination. Having wisdom knows what you can cut out and what to focus on right now for you, your particular body type, your fitness goals, what's going to work in your situation, and to kind of just eliminate all that other crap and distraction so that you don't get, you know, sidetracked. And that's where a lot of people are struggling, is because there's so much information. They'll try one program, and then they might give it a week or two, and then say, that didn't work, and they'll try another program, give it a week or two, and then they'll say, that didn't work, and try something else. Same with diets. You know, they might try one, give it a week or two, and then that didn't work, I'm gonna try something else. So I mean, they might go from, you know, a ketogenic for a couple weeks, and they say, I don't want to do that, and then they're going to go vegan for a couple weeks and say, I don't want to do that, and then they're going to go 6 meals a day bodybuilding bro diet, And they'll try that for a couple weeks, and oh, I don't know. And then they're like, oh, I tried everything, nothing works. I'm like, you tried everything, but you tried everything half-assed. You never gave anything the due diligence that it requires in order to make progress. I was having a conversation with a guy just a couple weeks ago. He's only been working out for a year, and he says, I've tried everything. Like I started mentioning some different workouts and different nutrition programs. Oh yeah, I've tried that. I've tried that. I've tried that. I'm like, you've been working out for a year. If you've tried like 10 different workout programs over the course of a year, and you've tried like a dozen different diet plans, then how much time did you dedicate to either one of these things? Like, you've only been working out for a year. To put it in perspective, when I would be getting ready for a bodybuilding competition, I would dedicate 6 months to my contest prep. I would start dieting 6 months, and so that I would stick to that one diet, that one training program, everything else for 6 months. And because I knew my body at that stage, and I knew that's what was required in order for me to get into contest shape, and I followed that, you know, plan religiously. Whereas a lot of people nowadays, they're hopping back and forth because there's so much stuff coming at them, and they don't know what to do and what to commit to. So I almost feel fortunate that I started training back in the days before information overload, before the internet, before social media and YouTube and all that. I mean, there's brilliance in simplicity. Let's put it that way. So again, thanks, Azim, for sharing that. Much appreciated. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Another question here. You recently shared a success story of a 51-year-old. Please make a video of him as well on how he started, issues, solutions, workout plans. Really like to see, because it's motivating. Well, that all depends on the individual. All right, I can't force somebody to go on camera and make a video, but I can certainly suggest it. We'll see how that goes. But if you want to see that particular success story, go to my website, leehayward.com. I think it's the second blog post that's on the website right now, and it is one of my followers, Kevin. And he's 51 years old, made some amazing progress. Let me just open it up here. Just open it up. You can head on over to my really quick here. Just want to refresh my memory. So head on over to leehayward.com, opens up the blog. Kevin Falcone, and he has his success story and his before and after. And he made some amazing progress. Like I say, 51 years old. Actually, he just turned 51, but still, right? He started at 50 and lost 40 pounds over the course of 11 months and really turned his physique around. You know, went from overweight, out of shape, you know, having a gut hanging over his belt, to now where he's lean, trim, ripped, veins, muscles, cuts, definition. I mean, the guy looks athletic, and he looks jacked. I mean, he's in great shape. And I mean, I'm super proud of him. I mean, especially for his situation. You know, he's a business owner. He's a grandfather. I mean, he's got responsibilities. It's not just like some young kid who got nothing in their life and they're just, what do? I work out, and they have no other responsibilities, right? I mean, I've been there. I mean, when I was a teenager living at home with mom and dad, I had no responsibilities. My responsibility was to get up and work out. That's all I focused on back in those days. But you know, life gets more complicated as you get older. You have a family, you've got businesses, and you've got responsibilities and other commitments. So I mean, Kevin got in shape despite all that stuff going on in his life. And again, you know, kudos to him. And so again, you can just head on over to my blog and see that his before and after pictures. I sent that out. I actually posted up on the community tab on my YouTube channel as well. Okay, we got Orang joining us. Boker, I think it is, saying thanks. You've taught me a lot. Jordan's joining us, says you've helped me get in shape. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. I really do. Jack is joining us, and he says, does an increase in strength correlate to an increase in size? Should an intermediate/advanced lifter whose muscle gains are now very minimal focus their effort to increase strength? All right, generally speaking, a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle and vice versa. Generally speaking. So if you get stronger, you'll typically get bigger. If you get bigger, you'll typically get stronger. It generally correlates. Now, there are some exceptions. It doesn't mean that the biggest guy is going to be the strongest or the strongest guy is going to be the biggest, but generally speaking, if you increase your own muscular strength or you increase your own muscular size, you will see an improvement in one or the other. And where I'm going to give you the exception to the rule is sometimes if you're looking at like power lifters, Olympic weightlifters, strongman competitors, and people of different, strength sports like that. Sometimes they have incredible strength, and it's not necessarily because they're the biggest. It might be due to their technique, due to their tendon and ligament strength, and just years of training. Like sometimes you'll see some Olympic lifters or power lifters who are kind of small in stature, but can move massive amounts of weight because, again, tendons and ligament strength, and maybe their leverage, joint leverage and stuff. For example, like people with shorter arms tend to be really good bench pressers just due to the leverage. People with longer arms tend to be good deadlifters due to leverage. People with a thick torso tend to be good squatters because it gives them a good strong base. So there's all kinds of different things like that that can come into play. But again, from your own personal training point of view, if you get stronger, chances are that's going to correlate into a bigger muscle as well. Especially if you're following that up with a high calorie diet and purposely trying to put on muscular body weight in the process. So again, getting back to his question, should an intermediate lifter whose muscle gains are now very minimal focus their effort on increasing strength? That's a good way to go. I mean, strength with good form. That's what I want to emphasize, because simply lifting heavier weight, if your form isn't good, that's not necessarily going to correlate over to more muscle size. So you want quality strength gains. I mean, strength gains with more time under tension. So increasing your repetitions, increasing the quality of those repetitions. Like, for example, if you're doing bicep curls, and let's just say, for example, you're curling 75 pounds, but you're swinging and cheating the weight up. If you tighten up your form to the point where you can curl that same 75 pounds, but nice, slow, controlled, strict, really, emphasize a good controlled, positive, control the negative, no swinging, no momentum, no cheating, just a pure muscle contraction, that's going to have much more impact on building bigger biceps than if you're swinging and cheating the same weight with momentum. So focus on quality versus the quantity. So don't increase the weight just for the sake of increasing the weight. Increase the weight when you can do so with good quality form. And also focus on increasing the time under tension. I mean, there's other ways to make strength gains without simply adding more weight to the barbell. More repetitions, more sets, less rest time between sets. There's ways you can increase the quality and the work volume and the density that you're putting onto the muscles versus just simply slapping more weight onto the bar. I mean, adding more weight is one way, but there's other ways, and you want to focus on all aspects, and again, the quality over the quantity. All right, we have Raf is joining us. He says, I've got to get to my I've got to my ideal weight, worked my butt off, but I still can't lose the rest of my belly fat. Lost most of my weight doing cardio. Now I'm lifting heavier, but not seeing good results. All right. First off, you've got to your ideal weight. Most guys don't realize how much weight they need to lose in order to get lean or get ripped. And I'm going to use an example from competitive bodybuilding. A lot of times you might have someone say they're a smooth 200 pounds. And they think, oh man, if I lose 20, 25 pounds, I'm going to be shredded. And then they go ahead and they lose that 20, 25 pounds. And yeah, they look a bit better, but they're like, I'm still far from shredded. Then they might need to lose a lot more. Typically, you have to lose more weight than you realize in order to get the level of leanness and definition. Unless you've actually gone through the process before, it's hard to appreciate it. We kind of over-exaggerate how much lean muscle we have, and we kind of underestimate how much body fat we have. So, for example, like a lot of people say, well, I'm about 15% body fat, and then they'll do the numbers based on, okay, if I want to get down to 10% body fat, then I need to lose X amount of weight, blah, blah, blah. And then they go ahead and they lose that weight and they realize I'm still not 10% body fat and I'm not looking lean and ripped. It's because you got to lose more weight than you realize. a lot of that initial weight loss when you go on a fat loss diet plan is just water and intestinal bloat. It's not even body fat at all. So you just, like, your first 10 pounds are mostly just water and bloat. Once you get that off, now you're starting to get into actually burning stored body fat, and you usually have to lose more weight than you realize. And you'll see this a lot. I mean, even if you look at some of the top pro bodybuilders, like back in the day, I remember seeing pictures like Dorian Yates and Jay Cutler and guys like that, and Ronnie Coleman getting up to, 300 plus pounds in the off season and still have visible abs at 300 plus pounds. They'd still diet down to around 250 pounds to get on stage for competition. And you're thinking, like, why are they losing so much weight? But that's what they needed to do in order to get the definition and the hardness that we associate with, professional bodybuilding. So even at that level, they have to lose a lot of weight in order to get as lean and defined as they were when they were competing. And that applies to everybody as well. So chances are you just need to keep lose more. I mean, if you drop another 10 pounds, chances are you'll see a much bigger difference in your level of leanness and hardness and definition. And as far as the belly fat, that's common with guys. I'm going to tell you, when you start losing fat, you're going to get lean in the shoulders. You're going to get lean in the arms. You're going to get lean in the legs. The belly fat is probably going to be the last to lose for most guys. That's just the way we store fat. That's just the way it is. So, I mean, you could have, veins and striations throughout your arms and shoulders. You could have, cuts in your quads. I mean, you can flex your quads and see all the cuts and separation and still have a roll of belly fat hanging over your belt. I've seen it. I mean, it's very common. So just realize that is the last to go. But the good news is once you get your belly fat to the point where it's lean and trim and you have a nice, tight, defined midsection, chances are everything else is going to come into play as well. So again, you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. You just need to keep dieting and lose more, right? The secret to dieting is not necessarily dieting harder, it's dieting longer, right? You can only lose fat so fast. Like once you get into a good set routine, 1 pound a week is good for an advanced person who's already lost the majority of their body weight. If you can lose 1 pound of solid body fat per week, that's really good. So if you got more fat to lose, then just add more weeks of dieting. That's as simple as that. And that's where, getting back to what I mentioned before, where I used to diet for 6 months for a bodybuilding show, because I've figured out that that's how long I needed in order to lose the fat that I had on my frame, right? I needed that much time in order to transition from, smooth to lean to ripped. And that's the way it would go. And so again, give yourself more time and keep pushing forward, and chances are you will reach that goal of the lean, defined midsection. All right, how are we doing for time here? Okay, I'm going to go for another few minutes, answer another couple questions. Another sip of water. Okay, Tyrone is joining us. Lee, what's the best way to lose body fat? I think we already covered a similar question, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Nothing against Tyrone's question there, but again, we've already discussed that topic. Oizen is joining us, and he says, when you reach an older age, are you just maintaining muscle, gaining muscle, or losing muscle slowly? That's really an individual thing. And the reason why I say that is because there are some people who can gain muscle in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. I mean, if you take someone who's never worked out and then all of a sudden they start working out, so let's just say in their 50s, they can actually build muscle in their 50s, because I mean, they can go through that phase of newbie muscle gains and stimulating lean muscle growth, following a proper training and nutrition program. You can still build muscle. So yeah. Now, the way most people will genetically go, like if you're not purposely trying to change your physique through diet and training, and you're just kind of letting Mother Nature take her course, you're going to have the most lean muscle as a young man. As you get older, as your natural testosterone levels start to decline, as your growth hormone and all that start to decline, then your muscle is going to start to decline as well. And the older you get, you're going to slowly start to lose muscle. And that's why most older people are kind of weak and frail, right? Because they're losing muscle. But at the same time, if you have someone who's taken action and is actually in the gym working out, following a proper nutrition program. I mean, you could have some guys who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who are looking lean and jacked because they're taking action and they're making progress, you know, due to sheer will. They're kind of like weight training and nutrition is kind of like the closest thing we have to a fountain of youth. So it really depends on the individual. But if you just leave it up to the way the body is going to work and you don't purposely try and change it through training and nutrition, yeah, you're going to lose muscle as you get older. Hi, Jesse is joining us. He's asking, is the reverse grip bench press superior to the incline bench when working the upper part of the chest? You'll have to try it and see what works best for you. I mean, bottom line, again, it really depends on your individual mechanics and joint structure and everything else, what works for you. You know, I can't really say that it's superior because we all have different body types, different joint structures, and I personally have used the reverse grip bench press and I find it really good. I actually find it to be a killer tricep exercise. I know it is a good chest exercise as well, but the biggest thing I found with the reverse grip bench press is the triceps. The way I used to do it is I would do it in the Smith machine, and I found that that was just, it would give me the most insane pump in the triceps. So that's what I found I got the most out of the reverse grip bench press. For me, I personally like the incline bench for targeting the upper chest. I find that works well. But again, depending on your body type and structure, it may or may not be that way for you. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. We have Easy A saying, I know you'll have videos on this, but what's the main component of a warm-up in your opinion? What's the main thing that every warm-up should have? If you're looking for the main component of a warm-up, I would say progressively heavier warm-up sets for the exercises you're going to do. That's the most important thing. Now, there are other components of a warm-up that I think are very important. For example, like I like to start off with 5 to 10 minutes of cardio to get my core temperature elevated and just to warm up my body, especially now it's winter time. Like last night we had a dump of snow. I mean, we've got like about 2 feet of snow on the ground now. It's cold outside. So, you know, when you're going into the gym and it's cold and it's snowy and all that, you want to physically warm up your body. Because I mean, if your body is cold, your muscles are more likely to pull or tear versus be flexible and mobile. So warm yourself up physically. That's why I like to do cardio. After that, I'll probably do some specific mobility drills and exercises for the joints, tendons, and ligaments, especially the areas that I'm going to work. You know, if I'm going to be working upper body, then I'm going to do some specific stuff for the shoulders and the elbows to warm up. If I'm going to be working the lower body, I'm going to do some stuff for my knees and my hips to get those warmed up. But the most important thing is when you get into doing the exercises themselves, do several progressively heavier warm-up sets. Start off very light and progress gradually. So for example, if I'm going to do squats, I'm going to start with the empty barbell. I'm just going to go through the motion, just do that one set with the empty barbell. Then I'm going to put on maybe put a 25 on each side, do another set. Then I'll put a 45 on each side, do another set, and just keep going up, you know, set by set in a progressive overload fashion to gradually warm up the joints, tendons, and ligaments, as well as the muscles. And I find that I think is the most important thing. If you just, like, if you could do your cardio warm up, you could do your mobility exercises, and let's just say your top working weight for the squat is 315, and you just go put 315 on the bar and try to squat it, that's an injury waiting to happen, even if you did your cardio warm up beforehand. Like, cardio just warms up your overall body, elevates your core temperature. But the progressively heavier warm-up sets, that's what's actually going to warm up the joints, tendons, and ligaments and prepare you mentally and physically for the exercises you're going to do. So that's what I figured. If you want to say, well, like, what's the most important aspect of a warm-up, the one thing that you cannot neglect, it's those progressively heavier warm-up sets. All right, we have B Victorious joining us. He says, greetings, Lee. How are you? I'm doing well, thank you much. Says, you mentioned once that when you are used to training every other day, you saw the best results. I know. Okay, I know the routine you use to follow it. Okay, he wants to know the routine that I followed back when I made my best gains. I've followed a lot of different programs over the years. I'm going to share some of the most productive ones. And again, it's not like one magic program, but I'm going to share some of the best ones that I follow. The 20 rep squat program. That is one that stands out in my mind that I've made some really good gains with. The 20 rep squat program is basically a total body workout, focusing primarily on the squats, and that was done 3 days a week or every other day. Another one that worked really well throughout the mid 2000s, I was big into powerlifting style training, and I was really focused on following the West Side Barbell training template of doing the dynamic effort followed up by the max effort work, alternating that. So I'd have like, how did the program go? It's been a while since I followed it now. Max effort bench, and then you'd have, max effort squat and max effort bench, dynamic effort squat, dynamic effort bench, and you'd go through it in that fashion. Max effort squat, max effort bench, dynamic effort squat, dynamic effort bench. And now, in those workouts, you would train all your major muscle groups. Like with the squat workout, usually you combine like squat and deadlift into the same workout because the same major muscle groups are used for squatting and deadlifting. You know, the back, the hips, the glutes, the legs. So you focus on those muscles, those exercises, and muscles that help to support those exercises. That's what you would do during the squat days. During the bench, obviously, you're focusing on the chest, shoulders, triceps, and all the supporting muscle groups that help with the bench. And by alternating those, I've made some really good progress. I mean, made some of my best gains following that style of training. And I just followed their basic template. What are some other ones that really stood out in my mind? I can remember just following some basic total body workouts. Like there was one phase I went through where I just literally did squat, bench, and a deadlift. And those were the only 3 exercises I did. And I did that 3 days a week, right? Just kept it simple. Just focus on the 3 power lifts, 3 days a week. And I did that for several months in a row and just focused on each week getting stronger in those key lifts. You know, just keep it simple. So sometimes the most simple programs can produce the best results. That's what I found. But I've went through different styles of training. If you want to see like all the best programs, and I have a list of like, you know, an archive of all my favorite workout programs that I've followed over the years. And that's on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle members website. Just go to totalfitnessbodybuilding.com. That's our private member site. And in there, there's an archive of all my best training programs. And you get access to that when you become a member. So if you want to see some of those programs, they're all in there listed out. And I share my personal feedback about each one, you know, how I've implemented it and the progress that I've made following those different programs. So you can get access to all those as a member of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle. How are we doing for time here, guys? 6:15. Okay, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. We've been going for about an hour now. I know we had a little delay at the start due to some computer technical issues, which, you know, beyond my control, but we make the best of it, right? You know, keep calm and carry on. So again, we had a good chat. I do appreciate all the comments and the support that comes through. I mean, I really enjoy to just touch base with you every week like this to connect and answer your questions. And I look forward to doing it again very soon. However, I have a little update. Next week, I will not be doing the live video chat because I'm actually going to be in Vancouver. I'm doing a collaboration with one of my mentors. All right, now this is a kind of a different video collaboration, and I'm going to kind of just keep it hush hush for now, but it's kind of pretty cool. It's cool, and it kind of relates back to some of the personal development and the goal setting stuff that I was mentioning earlier in that previous video that I shot yesterday, or uploaded yesterday, I should say. But one of my mentors, I'm going to be doing a video collaboration with next week, and I'm going to be heading to Vancouver, British Columbia to do that. So there will not be a live video chat next week. I just want to give you a heads up on that. But look forward to seeing some cool videos coming in the near future. Just leave it at that. All right, guys, have yourself a great weekend, and I will talk to you in a couple weeks' time. Take care. over and out.